Well, particularly with fairy tales, of course, the classic ending we think of is happy ever after. And one of the things we show in that part of the exhibition that it isn't always happy ever after. Sometimes it is, the prince and the princess marry and they live a happy life. Sometimes it's not. Hans Christian Andersen, of course, was the king of the unhappy ending. But endings can also be what J.R.R. Tolkien described in an essay as the eucatastrophe, the good catastrophe, when something bad turns to good.
Tales that endure in our modern society and still impact people's lives today.
One of the things that fantasy helps us to do is to look at, in modern life, is to look at our own life through a different prism, to take our own problems and transport them into another world and, in a way, work through them that way and think of alternative endings and possibilities that we might not see before us in the real world. Many ancient fairy tales and iconic quests are still influential today. This exhibition will be running until the end of February next year. Jane Worrell, NTD News, London.
Next week, the Beatles will release what they call their last new song. It includes the voice of late member John Lennon and is developed using artificial intelligence. The song, Now and Then, dates back to the late 1970s, when Lennon recorded a demo at his New York home. Years after his death, Lennon's wife, Yoko Ono, handed a set of recordings to the other Beatles, who added their own parts to it. Until now, technological limitations meant Lennon's vocals and piano couldn't be separated to produce the clear mix required to finish the song. Now and Then will be released worldwide on the 2nd of November. Well, that's all for tonight.
This is one of the tamer ones of your recent set. But so tell me, how is it that you ended up doing these songs?
Well, I spent a lot of 2020 examining what was happening in the world, and I was thinking about the future that was being made for my kids. And I felt like I had a platform as a musical artist. And like I said, I was looking around wondering why my heroes weren't speaking up. So I decided to sort of step forward and start releasing these songs and say something musically, not just as an artist, but just also for the sake of my kids' future. I didn't want them to look back on this time and wonder why Dad didn't say anything about what was happening in the world.
Fight for You makes me think of that, actually.
Yeah, exactly. That one was for it was for my kids. It was for a lot of the parents in this movement, that children are at the forefront of this fight, I think.
But you've been, I don't think you've been treated very well by the music industry, aside from a few outliers here. But
yeah, you really learn who your friends are the moment you sort of dip your toe into that water and start speaking out about what's important to you. So I lost a lot of friends in the music industry, but also gained a lot of new musical friends, and that's really exciting to see. It let me know that I wasn't alone.
How is it that you came across 5 Times August Nat?
Well, Brad's a phenomenal talent. He's not only a phenomenal songwriter, actually the music videos for his songs, he puts them together. He's the artist behind the videos. And so my first exposure to Brad was through Sad Little Man, the music video for that, and I thought it was phenomenal. And the team loves Brad, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do with Based Records, it's not a matter of partisan politics, it's not a matter of left or right, it's a matter of creating a new culture. And that's what a guy like Brad actually does. He's an actual creator, rather than somebody who's just going out there being acrimonious. He's actually trying to say something.
So come to think of it, I didn't even ask, how did you guys actually...
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
So we first met in person in Austin, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was introduced to Based through Chad Prather, actually.
Oh, really?
He told me about you, and then you guys invited me down to Austin, and they were doing an event with Minds, and we all hung out that night, and I got to know the guys pretty well.
Wait, so you're saying I was there?
And you were there too,
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Oh.
You were there with your producer, Karis, who's a wonderful lady, not too far off camera. And no, it was a great event. Brad was there, Winston Marshall, Mumford and Sons was there. He came and he played a couple of songs. He was great. We had a really fantastic night. We had Jeffrey Steele and Ira Dean, who were two very big songwriters out of Nashville. They wrote for Aaron Lewis, Am I the Only One, big hit song, and they played that song. It was a lot of fun.
So Matt, tell me a little more about the different artists that you've signed or are looking at, and I can't help but think, is Oliver Anthony one of them, or at least have you reached out?
What a great song, huh? Amazing song. Richmond, north of Richmond. Really incredible, especially that first verse. Really hit a lot of people right between the eyes. We reached out to tell him congratulations, and obviously, if he ever approached us, we'd love to work with him too. In terms of the artists I'm trying to work with, it's about a cultivated sense. It's about, first of all, the aesthetic, the quality of the music, but it's also about finding people who are easy to work with, people who are receptive. But we're working with Brad at 5 Times August, working with Chad Prather, who also has a show on the Blaze, who has a real Will Rogers comedic, humorous quality to him. We have Chris Wallen, who's a fantastic songwriter in Nashville, and he's working with songwriting talent all over town. And we found one incredible song called I'd Be Jolly Too. And Chad has cut it, and it's going to be a wonderful Christmas song. It's raunchy, it's fun, there's energy. We're also working with High Res, who recently put out his Trump the Dawn series. I'm sure that you saw First Day Out. He did an AI Trump parody rap. And we're going to put out an incredible song this November. It's about the Second Amendment, our need to protect our Second Amendment, and his personal experiences with it, which have been heart-wrenching. And then we're also in talks with Afroman. We're in talks with Afroman to do a parody of Because I Got High called 'Cause Hunter Got High. All right, and we're looking. The point is, you have to have fun. And as a result, we had tons of
this
boycotts,
guy.
right? The thing that I learned about conservative media is that we're looking for something to sell, in the sense that people are looking for something to find hope in, right? They're looking for art. They're looking for culture, because so much of music and movies and television spits in their face, for lack of a better term, insults them for having very simple, fundamental values, for having children, for caring about your family, for wanting to make decisions about your own body. You're right, no business is guaranteed to be profitable. However, what I believe, at least in terms of the mission, is that we have to exist. This kind of art has to exist. And because I think that the success of this kind of art is inevitable, the success of the business, God willing, there will be proper stewardship, and I won't do anything stupid, but God willing, it'll succeed as well.
But you mentioned art and culture, but there's also news, and just before going back to the music for a moment, I want to touch on that. The post-millennial has been a very important, media property in the ecosystem, which of course we look to very often. And to add to your point, absolutely, people are looking for just something closer, approximating straight up news at the very least, or straight up news.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tim Pool, for example, is an extremely talented guy, and he reads post-millennial, right? Other than Timcast, if he's reading something, it's often post-millennial, right? And you mentioned that people at Epoch are reading us too. When I founded post-millennial, that was the entire idea. I looked at conservative media and I saw that everybody's reacting to, let's say, the New York Times, or in my case, to CBC, right? But very little on-the-ground reporting, very little simple relaying of the facts was being done, right? And so we can't always be on the back foot. We have to be creating art. And by the same token, we have to be reporting just the news and just doing it well. And actually, that was before COVID. You saw what happened during COVID and how certain stories, the bias was reflected in terms of the stories they wouldn't share, that they wouldn't report on. And that's what Epoch Times does very well, by the way.
Well, so Brad, I first heard you at the DC Defeat the Man Days March. I can't even remember what year it was right now, but it was sort of one of these moments where a whole lot of people got together in this town to talk about many of the things that you sing about and write about in your songs. And apparently, I didn't know this until I just learned it. construct into your videos, which are remarkably creative. How is it that you went from, as I understand it, doing kids music, and even before, trace your journey here as a musician for me, please.
Sure. So I started 5 Times August right after high school. And, for many years, a good decade, I was touring colleges, just sort of singing pop love songs. I had a lot of songs licensed to MTV shows and different indie films and commercials. And that's sort of what I was doing for a really long time. Then I took a break from that and actually started a whole new kids project called the Juicebox Jukebox. And I was making, probably the most pure music I could put out there about kindness and being thankful, but doing it in like a hip way. My entire intention behind it was to create music that was fun for parents and teachers, that they could enjoy it just as much as the kids. And throughout that time, I was making videos to go along with those songs. So then 2020 hits, and I kind of stop everything I'm doing musically and, like I said, examining the world around me, and sort of took that little new skill set of making those videos and turned them into what I was doing now with sort of protest music. So it was an interesting arc to go from starting 5 Times August to becoming a dad, and that's where my headspace was, and focusing on my kids and putting out that music, and then pivoting into a protest artist of all things. I never would have thought that for myself, but that's where the road has led.
So did you think to yourself, okay, I need to make protest music. No one else is doing it. I have to do it. Was that the thought process?
Not necessarily, because there have been guys that have been speaking out a little bit. I mean, Tom MacDonald's a great example of somebody who really practices freedom of speech in his music, and he's been around doing it for a while. And that let me know it was okay to start sort of saying things that maybe might be considered taboo or something. I felt like I had to honestly just vent as a songwriter. I released a song called God Help Us All, and that was the first song that I put out in this trajectory of things. And I thought that would be the one song that, my sort of one say on what was happening in the world. But what happened was I started getting all this new feedback from people discovering that song, saying, thank you so much for saying what needed to be said. And that let me know I wasn't alone, and it let me know that I needed to write more songs like that to let others know they weren't alone.
So where can we find...
Looking back, all the old men sitting in their makeup chairs with their gold record walls really couldn't care. All the fame feels the same when you've had enough, so they don't bother standing up. Because there ain't no rock and roll, and the blues has lost its soul. All the punks gave the man control, and every pop star's bought and sold. No, there ain't no rock and roll.
Thank you all for joining Matt Azrieli and Brad Skistimus and me on this episode of American Thought Leaders. I'm your host, Yanya Kelly.
Well, there ain't no rock and roll ever since they sold out Rolling Stone. All the words that were sung in the past will never feel the same when we're looking back. All the old men sitting in their makeup chair with their gold record walls really couldn't care. All the